It is late, and an old man sits alone at his kitchen table with an open Bible in front of him. He has prayed to God every night for 60 years. And tonight, for the first time, a quiet question will not leave him alone. Not whether God is real, something stranger. Who exactly has he been praying to? He does not know it yet. But that question has an answer, and the answer has been sitting on the first page of his Bible his whole life. There is not one name for God in this book. There are three, and it is the second one, not the famous one, not the one he prays to, that the church spent 300 years trying to bury. Type 3 names in the comments if no one ever taught you this, because that second name appears to stand above the God of Israel, above the God most people have prayed to their whole lives, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Tonight, we are going to find it. The 3 divine names hidden in the Hebrew, the single verse that was quietly changed to cover the second one up, and the sealed jar, buried in the Egyptian sand for 1600 years, that dragged all of it back into the light. But it begins with the very first word of the Bible, a word you have read 1,000 times and never once questioned. That word is Elohim, and here is what the translation never tells you. Elohim is plural. Grammatically, it does not mean God. It means something closer to gods. Now, for centuries, scholars have had a calm and reasonable answer for this. They call it the plural of majesty, the way a king says we when he means only himself. And honestly, that answer holds for a while until you keep reading, because the Hebrew Bible does not use one name for the divine. It uses several, and they do not always sound like the same person. Now, there is Elohim, the vast creator of Genesis. There is Elyon, God Most High. And there is Yahweh, the personal God of Israel, the God of Abraham, the God of the burning bush. And here's the detail the ancient readers noticed, and we forgot. These 3 names do not only sound different, they behave differently. Yahweh calls himself a jealous God. Stop on that word. Jealous. Of whom? You do not grow jealous of something that does not exist. And the commandment never says there are no other gods. It says, put no other gods before me. That is a very different sentence than the one you were taught. Now back to that second name, Elyon, God Most High. He appears in one of the most overlooked scenes in all of Scripture. In Genesis, Abraham comes home from battle, and a mysterious figure walks out to meet him. Melchizedek, a priest of God Most High, and Abraham, the father of the entire faith, bows. He hands this stranger 1/10 of everything he owns. Now think about that. By this point in the story, Abraham already belongs to Yahweh. Yahweh called him. Yahweh made him a promise. And yet here he is, honoring the priest of a different divine name as something higher still. And there is a verse that makes this almost impossible to ignore. Deuteronomy chapter 32. In the oldest copies we possess, found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, it reads like this: When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. And then this line: Yahweh's portion was his people, Israel, his allotted share. Read it slowly. The Most High divides the nations. To each one, he assigns a divine being, and Yahweh receives Israel as his portion. And here's the part that should stop you. The later Hebrew text, the one most of our Bibles come from, quietly changed that line. Sons of God became sons of Israel. One small edit, and the entire structure underneath it vanished. The old man at the table has read this chapter before. He never knew a single word in it had been changed. This is what those early Christians were reading. The older words, the ones before the edit. Now I have to take you somewhere. The year is 1945. Egypt, a cliff near a town called Nag Hammadi. A farmer, digging for soft earth to feed his crops, strikes something hard in the ground. A sealed clay jar. He is afraid to open it. But hunger and curiosity win. And inside he finds 13 books, bound in leather. 52 ancient writings, hidden in that jar for 1,600 years. These were the books the early church had ordered burned, erased, and someone, most likely a monk in the dead of night, could not bring himself to obey. So he sealed them in a jar and buried them in the sand, and trusted the desert to keep them until the world was ready. One of those books is called the Secret Book of John, and in it is a description of a divine being who builds the material world. This world, the one you are in right now. A being who looks around at his creation and believes he is the only God that exists. A being who declares, almost word for word, "I am a jealous God, and there is no other God beside me." You have heard that sentence before. It is what Yahweh says in Exodus. In Isaiah, the people who wrote this were not inventing a story. They were reading the same Bible you own, and they were pointing at the things that did not fit. The regret, the jealousy, the violence and the mercy in the same breath. And they asked a question that frightened them. What if the God of this world is not the highest God? This is what they came to believe. Far above this world, beyond every name, there is a true source. Not a man, not a being who rages or regrets. Pure light, pure being. It does not create by command, it overflows. The way the sun gives light simply by being the sun. And they believed something about you, too. That inside every human being there is a spark of that first light. A fragment of the true source, buried in flesh, in a world that was never its home, and that the whole purpose of a life is to remember it. There is a line in one of those buried books, the Gospel of Thomas. Words attributed to Jesus that never entered the Bible you own. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you leave behind will destroy you. That is not the voice of rules and punishment. That is the voice of awakening, of something you already carry, waiting to be remembered. So why have you never heard any of this? The answer is not mysterious. It is only uncomfortable. In the year 325, the Emperor Constantine gathered the church at a place called Nicaea. He did not need a beautiful religion. He needed a single one empire, one faith, one answer. And a faith full of competing books and competing gods was useless to a man trying to hold a cracking empire together. So one version was chosen, and every other version was named heresy. The books were burned, the teachers were scattered, and the verses that pointed to something older were quietly smoothed over, until a farmer's shovel struck a clay jar, and the silence finally broke. Now let me be honest with you, the way I would want someone to be honest with me.